بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد. Whenever you send salams to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, you should always believe in your heart that Imam al-Hussein responds to your salam. However, he doesn't respond in the conventional manner. He responds through inspiration. He inspires your heart with goodness. Sometimes after reciting the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah, you're inspired to do something good. That is alayka salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And sometimes if you close the noise that's going through our minds, for a moment you leave all of your problems outside that door when you walk in, and you send salams to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the least that you will feel in your heart is the sweetness and the joy of sending salams to him. So join me this evening as we begin tonight's lecture by sending our salutations to Imam al-Hussein and his family and his companions. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائه عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Last night we started a discussion on freedom, and I said that Islam advocates for the legal rights and freedoms of all human beings, and these are freedoms given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't have to learn these rights and freedoms from modern societies. We can learn these rights and freedoms from the Quran and the seerah of the Holy Prophet. But then we say that more important than legal freedoms are spiritual freedoms. And the late Sheikh Murtaza Bachoo say that the tragedy of modern society is that whilst it has focused on legal freedoms, it has forgotten to advocate for spiritual freedoms. And I started to challenge our concepts of freedom. I said that if a person was to be a slave of his desire, a slave of his whims, a slave to his anger, a slave to his grudges, a slave unto materialism, and a slave of his addictions, can that person call himself a free person? If a person cannot afford himself the freedom to think for himself, and he blindly follows another person because the other person is a celebrity, because the other person is a friend, because the other person sometimes is a member of the family, can that person truly say that he is a free person? And so we say that spiritual freedoms are even more important. And the whole conversation started because we wanted to talk about peer pressure, negative peer influence. And tonight I'd like to talk about how to overcome peer pressure and how we can avoid being negatively influenced by our peers. And I'll share it with you in 3 points. The first point is every human being has to ask himself, what does it mean to be a free person? If I give in to peer pressure, and I do those things that I would not normally like to do, and I know they are wrong, am I a free person? The Imam says, "Izzul mu'min istighna'uhu 'anil nas." The honor and dignity of a believer lies in his independence from needing people. 1. 2. One of the questions that everybody has to ask themselves is, why do we give into peer pressure? And yarhamukallah, what are we looking for in the other person when I listen to him, even though I know what he's saying to me is wrong? Right? What do I want from that person? And inevitably you find what we're looking for from the other person is something called dignity, something called respect, a little bit of acceptance. We want to fit into society. We don't want to be socially awkward, right? And we want a little bit of praise from that person. So in Arabic, the word for dignity is izza or karama. Now I want to share with you a few verses about izza. But first, when we talk about peer pressure, many of us, we imagine those moments when somebody comes up to you and starts pressuring you to do something that you don't want to do. Pressuring somebody to do drugs, pressuring somebody to bully another person, pressuring you to do something that is not appropriate for you to do. And they keep on saying it until you give into it. What you will find in life is that a lot of peer pressure is non-verbal. Nobody's going to articulate it for you, but you know what is expected of you. You get it. You know if you behave in this manner, this is how people are going to think of you. And if you behave in that manner, even though nobody's told you, that's what they're going to think of you. For example, nobody comes up to you and tells you how to speak, what language to use and what language not to use. But you know, if you speak like this, people will think of you like this. And if you speak like that, they'll think of you as a nerd, as a geek. Right? For example, and I'm sorry to use these examples, but we have to deal with real life situations. Parents may find these examples to be shocking, but I tell you, I'm not using these examples because I want to shock you. I'm using these examples because that is what is happening in the lives of our children. So nowadays it's very common to hear the F word here and the F word there. Every sentence has to have it as an extra word in there. It's become part of the common language. And I believe you. I believe you when you tell me that we don't mean it. It's just part of the culture of the way we speak today. For example, you know that if you want to hang out with a particular group of people, then that's how they roll. Right? That's how they speak. Sometimes you find that whilst it's maybe okay for black people to use the N-word to refer to each other, It's not appropriate for us to use the N-word to refer to each other just because that's how we roll. The N-word has a lot of historical baggage to it. It has a painful history to it. It has slavery associated to it. Centuries of slavery associated to it. Just to throw it around because that's how cool people talk. That's insensitive towards the struggles of black people. Right? Now, my brothers and sisters, we've got decisions to make in life. And one of the decisions that we have to make in life is this tongue of mine. Is it going to be a tool of Rahman, or is it going to be a tool of Shaitan? It doesn't have two loyalties. It has a single loyalty. If you use it for Rahman, then use it for Rahman. And if you use it for Shaitan, don't expect to enjoy using this tongue for the sake of God. Right? Now let me share with you a hadith that some of you have heard because I've shared it with you before. But I think reminders are good because reminders benefit the believers. The narrator says that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salati was salam used to have a companion who would always be around him. And he would love to hang out with the sixth Imam. So you would see them often together. And one day they're going through the bazaar, and this companion calls his slave. The slave doesn't answer. He calls him again. The slave doesn't answer. He calls him a third time. The slave doesn't answer. This man turns around and says, "You are a son of an indecent woman." I'm saying it politely. The Imam turned to him and said, "What did you say?" The man said, "Don't worry, Yabna Rasulillah, he's not a Muslim. So we don't have to worry about it if we use those words for people who are not Muslims." The Imam turned to him and said, in every culture and every religion, they have a way of marriage. As long as they get married according to their culture and their religion, you have absolutely no right of accusing his mother of indecency. Then the Imam said to him, "I want you to leave me." The narrator says, from that day until the end of their lives, I never saw these two people together again. Do I want to be with Imam al-Sadiq in the hereafter? Do I not want to be with Imam al-Sadiq? Now I believe you, my dear brothers and sisters, when you tell me that when the F word is used or the N word is used, you don't mean it. But the thing is, when you get used to using it, one day you get angry sometimes with a brother in faith, you get angry with your parents, guess what you're going to do? Because you're used to doing it. We have to be careful. But nobody's going to tell you how to talk and how not to talk. You'll just get it. That if you talk in this way, you'll be labeled like this. You talk that way, you'll be labeled like that. Nobody tells you how to dress. Nobody comes and peer pressures you and says, these are the brand names that you have to wear and these are the styles that you shouldn't wear. Right? But you get it. I once made the mistake of going into a store. I was looking to buy a pair of pants. And I picked up a pair of pants. I didn't read it. It was slim fit. So I took it to the changing room to see how it fit. I felt embarrassed even though nobody was around. And I thought to myself, how do people wear this in public? How do you wear it when members of the opposite gender are there? How do ladies wear it when men are there? But nobody's going to tell you that's how you're supposed to dress. You get it. Now sometimes when we think of peer pressure, we think that peer pressure only affects our young brothers and sisters and affects those who are youngsters. You find that even elders and adults are susceptible to peer pressure as well. And nobody tells you. But you know that if you want to hang out with a particular clique of people, driving an American car isn't going to cut it. Driving a Japanese car isn't going to cut it. Unless you drive a German car, then you can't hang around with them. So what do? We cave into peer pressure and we make car payments which are way beyond our financial means. I mentioned on the day of Eid, for those who were there in the khutbah, that nowadays people take loans not to pay for their mortgage, not to pay for a car, not to pay for, let's say, a surgery that's needed. They take loans to pay for what? For clothes. Because they have maxed out their credit cards, but they have to buy brand name, high-end clothes which are in fashion, and pay amazing rates of interest to be able to maintain a particular standard. Now if that's not peer pressure, then what is? So now the question is, how do we overcome peer pressure? And we realize all we're looking for is a little bit of dignity, a little bit of respect, a little bit of acceptance amongst a particular group of people. So Islam teaches us that what you are looking for, people don't have it. Pay careful attention. What you are looking for, people don't have it. And if they don't have it, they can't give it to you. What are you looking for? You're looking for dignity. People don't have it. All of dignity belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. من كان يريد العزة سورة فاطر من كان يريد العزة فلله العزة جميعا. Whoever is seeking dignity and respect, he should know all of it, 100%, not even 99%, 100% of it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody can give you an iota of dignity. Surah Al-Munafiqun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Dignity belongs to God. He gives it to the Prophet, He gives it to the believers, but the hypocrites just don't get it. Alright? So what do we learn from this? What we learn from this is that if God were to give you dignity, nobody can take it away from you. And if God takes away your dignity, nobody can give it to you. Now I know that becomes very difficult when you're caught up in the moment, when you're in the situation, when you have to make decisions. When you're going through high school and college and university, you start doubting yourself and you think to yourself, how can it be possible that I would do those things which are not popular, stay away from those things which are popular, and still be held in dignity in my society? So this is where, brothers and sisters, we need to have iman. We have to put our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A believer has faith in God. A believer has faith in the day of judgment. A believer has faith in prophethood. A believer has faith in wilayah. One of the things a believer must have faith in, he must have faith in the promises of Allah. If God promises you something, He will fulfill His promise. You keep your end of the bargain, He will keep always His end of the bargain. So how do we convince ourselves? You will find that there are moments in life where God makes you experience it. And if you are a person who thinks, you will get it. You will get that moment in life where you come to realize God always fulfills His promises. I had that moment last year when I went for the ziyarah of Aba Abdullah on the day of Arba'een. We walked such a long distance, somewhere between Najaf and Karbala, to get to Karbala. On the day of Arba'een, we got there. Half a kilometer away from the Haram of Imam al-Hussein, nothing was moving. Hundreds of thousands of people were madly moving towards the shrine of Aba Abdullah. There were so many people, I tell you, those people who walked 30 to 40 kilometers and they didn't get tired. The last half kilometer just to get from one place to another place broke them down because of the sheer crowd. I saw people sleeping on the floor. I saw people sleeping on a blanket. I saw them shivering at night. They ate whatever they could find. I saw people one after another just wanting to be near the shrine of Imam al-Hussein. And the one question that you feel over there, today you're not feeling it because you're just listening to it. The single question that comes to your mind when you are in Karbala is, what did this man do to get so much dignity? To steal the hearts of people. Have you asked yourself? What did he do to get so much dignity? Let me ask you, did he do what was popular in his society? Or did he do that which wasn't popular in his society? Did he go with the crowd? Did he go against the crowd? Did people give him dignity? Or did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him dignity? Dignity is only found in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the second holy Imam, Al-Imam Al-Hasan Al-Mujtaba alayhi afdalu salati wa salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, was passing away, one of his companions came to him at the last moments of his life and he asks him, Yabna Rasulillah, give me some nasiha. The Imam says to him, إِذَا أَرَدْتَ عِزَّةً بِلَا عَشِيرَةٍ. If you want honor and dignity without an ashira, back in those days a person got his dignity from his family, from his tribe. He said, I come from this family, from that family, that gave him dignity. Today you get your dignity from the people that you hang out with. There's always a particular group of people at school that everybody wants to hang out with. Right? The Imam says, if you want dignity without having to hang out with anybody, وَهَيْبَةً بِلَا سُلْطَانٍ, and you want hayba. Normally I translate hayba as awe. I don't think it conveys the meaning of hayba. You know what hayba is? Hayba is something you call swagger. You know when somebody just walks in and everybody takes a breath? That's hayba. If you want hayba without any authority, without relying on any political authority, then what should you do? Listen to the hadith. If you're writing, write this down. The Imam says, فَخْرُجْ مِنْ ظُلِّ مَعْصِيَةِ اللَّهِ إِلَىٰ عِزِّ طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. Then come out of the disgrace of disobeying God and enter into the dignity and honor of obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So 2, dignity comes from God, not from caving into peer pressure. Number 3, and we end with that, is if we want to overcome peer pressure, we have to build some level of confidence. A believer is somebody who has confidence. He's a person who doesn't cave in, right? He holds himself with dignity. He holds his head high. Even if you don't have confidence, that's now excuse for not developing confidence. If you don't have confidence, act like you've got confidence. Right? Don't let people shake you. You walk out, you practice your faith, and show that you've got confidence in your faith. Now sometimes we know that we have to say our salah in public, but we're so embarrassed to pray in public that even those who are looking at us can feel our sense of embarrassment. Right? There's a brother who had to pray at work, but he was so embarrassed, he used to go and pray in the cleaner's closet because nobody could see him there. And one day somebody saw him there. He came to him and said, "Oh, so and so, you don't have to do yoga in the closet. You know, we've got other space where you can go and do yoga." You realize that you don't want to shake hands with members of the opposite gender because that is not the criteria of modesty that you have. Now that you're going to observe it, don't make silly excuses. Don't say, "I have a cold, so I can't shake your hands today because I don't want you to get a cold." Give it, and give it straight up. Straight up. Say, "In my faith, we don't shake hands with members of the opposite gender. I don't mean to insult you. I'm pleased to meet you. I look forward to working with you, but that's how it is." Hold a straight face. Now I know that some of us are scared to do that. What happens if it doesn't work out? I say, give it a try in life sometimes. What's the worst that could happen? Once in a while, why don't you test God and say, "God, I'm keeping my end of the bargain. Let's see if you keep your end of the bargain." You see, we never develop confidence unless we start acting once in a while in our lives with a little bit of confidence. So let's try to act with a little bit of confidence. Now, one of the companions of the seventh Imam came to him, Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. And he had some of the same complaints that we have today. The Imam told him, "Oh Yunus, when you're talking to people, talk to them at their level." He said, "Yabna Rasulillah, they call me crazy. They give me labels. They say I'm a zindiq, I'm an atheist." Right? And look at what the Imam says to him. He says to him, the only way they can influence you if you don't know the value of what you have. If you know the value of what you have, doesn't matter what anybody else says, it's not going to affect you. Now look at the example the Imam gives to him. The Imam says to him, if you have a jewel in your hand and everybody else says it is pebbles, does it lower the value of what you have in your hand? No. And if you have pebbles in your hand and everybody else says you've got a jewel in your hand, does it increase the value of what you have? No. So nobody can deceive you as long as you know the value of what you have. Let me ask you, do you know the value of what you have? You know, sometimes we don't have confidence because we haven't developed confidence. And today everybody in society talks about something called self-confidence. You should have self-confidence, and you say, I don't have confidence in myself. That's okay. Our religion is a beautiful religion. Our religion says you don't have to have confidence in yourself, but you do have to have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It'll never go wrong there. You have to have confidence in your religion. My brothers and sisters, it's the best religion, I'm confident of it. It's the best set of values, I'm confident of it. If I have to pray at this time, it's the best thing for me to do. I am confident of it. If I know that this is the best thing to do, nobody else can shake my faith. So value what you have. Now, I just want to end with one more message. And here I want to address our dear parents and the parents of our children. But before we do that, I'm asked to request you to move as much forward as you can. We've got some people now sitting towards the outside. Please recite aloud, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's space on the right as well. Please take advantage of that space and allow more people to enter into the Majlis of Aba Abdullah. So, dear parents, when you're raising your children, raise them to have something called self-esteem. And never break their confidence and their self-esteem. It's a jewel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put into their hearts. And this is something that they need in their lives. The first holy Imam says, and our parents should remember this hadith, مَنْ كَرُمَتْ عَلَيْهِ نَفْسُهُ لَمْ يُهِنْهَا بِالْمَعْصِيَةِ. Whoever values himself, has a level of self-esteem, he will never disgrace himself with committing sins. So your children have got something called self-esteem. Always protect their self-esteem, no matter what they do wrong in their lives when they're growing up. Sometimes we get angry at our children. And we come home from work and we're frustrated at work, and you come home and the children are not listening to you either. They're frustrating you as well. So you've got a lot of anger that's pent up, that's built up. And you unleash a tirade on that poor little guy. You know, all of the things you wanted to say to your manager at work, to your boss at work, you wanted to tell him this and that, you couldn't do that because you were afraid of him. Sometimes we unleash it on the poor guy. We say things like, you know, why did you have to be born in my family? And, you know, like, what wrong did I do in my life? And sometimes that little guy, no matter how hard he tries, he's not appreciated. We don't show them the love that they desperately are craving. Right? Sometimes always telling them, why can't you be like Khala's son? Right? Look at all the awards he gets. Why can't you at least once in your life make me proud the way, for example, so-and-so makes his parents proud? Look at him, look at him. Right? And what happens? You're breaking down this person's self-esteem. And I have seen people craving for respect. I have seen children craving for love because they don't get it at home. Now, I just want you to think with me what happens when this child goes to high school and they find somebody who gives them the love and respect they are craving for. They will do anything for that person. He will say, take drugs, he will take drugs. He will say, sell drugs, the kid will sell drugs. He will say, have an indecent relationship, doesn't matter, grade 9 or 10. It happens. Right? So my dear parents, if you don't want your children to be susceptible to peer pressure, then when we're raising them, if they've done something wrong, tell them what they've done is wrong. There can be consequences to it as well. You tell them in advance that these are going to be the consequences, they do it, you follow up with those consequences. But never use words that are going to break the self-esteem of the child, because now you're making him susceptible to peer pressure. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We turn our hearts now to Karbala, to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, to remember a young man filled with self-confidence, confidence in Allah, filled with self-esteem, a sense of honor, a sense of dignity. And look at the confidence of Qasim ibn al-Hasan. That is a confidence that a mu'min should have. So let us take our hearts to Karbala on this night and turn to the Dariyah of Aba Abdullah and do tawassul to him. Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Husayn ibn Ali, أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا، يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Qasim is the son of Imam al-Hasan. As you know, even during the last moments of his life, Imam al-Hasan was worried for Imam al-Hussein. When he saw his brother crying, he said, Ya Aba Abdullah, why are you crying on this day? Imam al-Hussein says to his brother, how can I not cry on this day when I see you suffering from the effects of the poison, and I see what the people have done to you, and I know that soon you shall be leaving me. When Imam al-Hasan heard this, he turned to Imam al-Hussein and he said to him, لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله. There is no day like your day, Ya Aba Abdillah. Thousands of people will gather and surround you. They will want to kill you. They will want to imprison your women and children. The children of Imam al-Hasan, they were very loyal to Imam al-Hussein. They wanted to protect the Imam of their time. Imam al-Sajjad said, on the night before the day of Ashura, when my father allowed the companions to leave, and one by one they remained in the tent, when he saw that all of them are remaining with loyalty, he turned to them one by one, and he said, oh so and so, tomorrow you'll be martyred, and oh so and so you'll be martyred at this place. He had spoken to everyone, but he had not spoken to Qasim, the son of Imam al-Hasan. So Qasim came to Imam al-Hussein and he said, oh my dear uncle, what about me? Will I be martyred tomorrow on the day of Ashura? Imam al-Hussein turned to him and said, oh Qasim, tell me, how do you find death? When you think of death, what comes to your mind? Qasim said to him, أحلى من العسل. It is sweeter than honey to me. Imam al-Hassan said, Imam al-Hussein turns to Qasim and he says to him, O Qasim, you shall be martyred tomorrow. Even my Ali al-Asghar will be martyred in the plains of Karbala. Some of the narrators say, Qasim turned to Imam al-Hussein and he said, will the enemies come into the tent? Will they come for the ladies and children? Imam said to him, no, I will take him with my own hand and he will be killed in front of me. But I will say, O Qasim, on the night after the day of Ashura, the enemies came into the tent. They came for the women and children. On the next day, everybody fought valiantly. The companions gave their lives. The family members were giving their lives. Ali al-Akbar was martyred. Some of the other family members were martyred. But for some reason, whenever Qasim would come to Imam al-Hussein, the Imam would turn him away and tell him to go back, until one time he came to the Imam and the narrator says, فَلَمْ يَزَلِ الْغُلَامِ يُقَبِّلُ يَدَيْهِ وَرِجْلَيْهِ حَتَّى أَذِنَ لَهُ. He wouldn't stop holding on to the hands of Hussein. He wouldn't stop holding on to the feet of Hussein. He would kiss the hands of Imam al-Hussein until the Imam allowed him to leave. So this young man of 13 years rides out on a horse. The narrator says, when I looked at his face, كَأَنَّهُ شَقَّةُ قَمَرٍ. He was like the splinter of a new moon. His sandals were broken. He held a sword in his hand. And when he entered the plains of Karbala, you know, if they didn't know who he was, they might have taken it easy on him. They might not have gone after him. And he knew how much they hated his father. And yet he entered the plains of Karbala and he called out to them, إِن تَنْكِرَانِي فَأَنَا نَجْنَ بْنُ الْحَسَنِ صِبْطُ النَّبِيِّ الْمُصْطَفَى وَالْمُؤْتَمَنِ.
صبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لاصقوا صوب المزون. إن تنكروني فأنا نجل الحسن صبط النبي المصطفى والمرتهن. هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لاصقوا صوب المزون.
So he said, إن تنكروني فأنا ابن الحسن صبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن. If you don't know me, I am the son of Hassan, who is the grandson of Rasulullah. This is Hussein, surrounded by his enemies, by a group of people. May they never be quenched by water from the sky. He was fighting bravely until a man came and said, I shall make his mother mourn for him. Someone say to him, why do you have to go after him? The people will kill him. But he said, I shall make his mother mourn for him. Before Qasim could turn around and see this person coming for him, he hit Qasim on his forehead. Qasim fell to the plains of Karbala. He called out to his uncle. Everyone would call out, Ya Aba Abdillah. Qasim calls out, Ya Amma, my dear uncle, come to my aid. The narrator says, Al-Hussein came out like a lion. He came out like a falcon. He fought off the enemies of Qasim. But what did he see? What did he see when he reaches the body of Qasim? He sees Qasim struggling on the ground. It is so painful. The young man is hitting his knees onto the ground. Imam al-Hussein was so broken at the time in his heart. He said to Qasim, oh my dear Qasim, Azza wallahi ala ammik. It is hard for your uncle and tad'u fala yujibuk, that you call out to him and he's not able to help you. Aw yujibuk fala yanfa'uk, or he calls out to he answers you, but he's not able to aid you. Some of the narrators have said that was a moment when Aba Abdillah called out in the plains of Karbala, Ama min nasirin yansarana, Ama min maghithin yughithuna liwajhil. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.